Yes, it is a soy milk. It is my favorite, and I am happy that it is still free here in Macao. But no. Do you know what this is? Yes, it is a candle. Can someone tell me why we use candles? I hear you say a candle is used for a light. A scented candle smells good. And candles are placed on birthday cake. Do you add one more candle each year? Now, watch as Sir Walter strikes a match and light the candle. Of course, boys and girls should never strike matches. That's a good joke for adults. Before it was just pretty, but it didn't do what a candle is supposed to do. With a flame, it burns right. Which do you think is best? A candle or one with a flame? You know, our lives are like candles. If we don't show others that we love Jesus, we aren't doing what Jesus wants us to do. But if we love Jesus, obey our parents, show kindness to our others, and give God's laws, our lives can burn as bright as this candle. Let me tell you a story of a woman whose life shines brightly for the Lord. Are you ready to listen? Yes. Once there was a man who has 5 wives. How many wives?
5.
Yes, 5. How many do we have the little boys here? Hello boys, when you are all grown up, you are supposed to have only 1 wife. Is that a deal? Now, this man is an atheist. He does not believe in God. He denies God's existence. He does not believe that behind the air we breathe, the sun that warms us, the rain that refreshes us, the budding of the flowers, and the germination of vegetation is a loving and merciful God. He refuses to believe that this God takes care of his children and even gives them food and water. Of his 5 wives, however, the one that he loves and adores the most became a Christian, and every day she would sweetly yet meaningfully tell him, "You know, my dear husband, I have a loving God. I can talk to him and he can talk to me. He lives in heaven, he lives on earth, and he lives in my heart too. And how he desires to live in your heart too."
"Oh, be quiet about your God. I don't want anything to do with him."
Her husband would snap back an irritation. Every single day, she would sleepily yet remind her dear about her God who loves and cares for them. "You know, my dear husband, I have a loving God. I can talk to him and he can talk to me. He lives in heaven, he lives on earth, and he lives in my heart too." She does not mind the sharp retort. All she cares about is that someday her husband would accept her God. Now, just before harvest time, their wheat plantation, which is their only source of livelihood, was infested with pests. The husband was worried. If this plague continued for about a couple more days, we will have nothing left. We will starve to death, he said in distress. Meanwhile, the wife began to pray silently, yet earnestly to God to shoo away the pests. wife and said, "Wife, you said you can talk to your God, didn't you? You said he listens to you. You said he cares for us. Why don't you talk to him now and tell him to drive away this plague? Let's see what your God can do," he said with a sneer. "Okay, dear husband." And so the wife continued to pray for God to intervene. That night, the wind blew strong. The following day, what do you think happened the following day? The gust of wind blew away the pests, but the crops were kept safe. When harvest time came, they have gathered more than they have ever had their entire life. Didn't I tell you, dear husband? I have a loving God. I can talk to him, and he can talk to me. He lives in heaven, he lives on earth, and he lives in my heart too. And how he desires to live in your heart too, she said with a smile.
Oh, be quiet about your God. I didn't want anything to do with him. Don't you think it just happened by chance? Why give the credit to your God? Just stop talking about him.
Then their only child got seriously sick. The once happy, full of life boy now lies frail, seemingly lifeless. Gone was his infectious laughter and witty remarks. For weeks, the husband and wife consulted several physicians, but no one knew the cure to the unusual disease. Unknown to her husband, from the day the boy got sick, the wife had sent SOS and whispered prayers to her Heavenly Father. She was worried, yes, but not without hope. "Why don't you plead your God for our son's behalf? See if he really cares," challenged the husband. "That's exactly what I'm doing, and you'll see that my God listens, answers, and cares." 3 days later, the boy showed signs of improvement. Color rushed back to his lips and cheeks. He started to wiggle and giggle and laugh, and before the week was over, he was back to his usual self. Didn't I tell you, dear husband? I have a loving God. I can talk to him, and he can talk to me. He lives on heaven, he lives on earth, and he lives in my heart too. And how he desires to live in your heart too. Enough! I'm getting tired of this conversation. I'll go for a vacation just across the river to my friend. I'll stay there for a couple of days. I'm going to leave this key to my treasure chest to you. Keep this safe and never let anyone get this, not even my 4 other wives. Sure, my dear. Look, I'm going to hang this here. When you get back, it will be just where you left it. The man left and the woman went gardening to the backyard. On his way back his mind, he decided to take the key with him. Let's see what my wife would do. He thought she would soon discover the key is missing. She would pray hard, but her God wouldn't be able to get this key from me. A smirk painted his face, satisfied of himself for his evil plan, and so he did. On his way to his friend's house, just before crossing the small river, he thought he couldn't risk losing the key, so he decided to hide it in the ground. He dug a hole deep enough to keep the key safe, wrapped the key with a big leaf, and covered the hole and continued his way. While in his friend's house, a strong typhoon hit the area. Meanwhile, back home, his wife, upon finding home, the key was begun to pray. She prayed fervently for miracle. When the rain subsided, she bought a big fish for a sumptuous dinner, knowing that her husband would be coming anytime soon. As she was slicing the big fish, the knife hit something hard. What could it be? Anyone? Yes, the key. It was a miracle right before her very eyes. God answered her prayers. She uttered a quick prayer of thanks, cleaned up the key, wiped it dry, and hung it right where it used to be. Back in the riverbank, the husband was desperately in search for the key. He was sure he left it right there, in that very spot, but he could find it no more. He looked and looked, but the key was gone. Because of the heavy downpour, the river rose and the bank had been washed out. Well, I left it with my wife. She should be able to give it back to me. But at the back of his mind, he knew full well the truth. Upon arriving home, even before he could put down his suitcase, he said to his wife, "Where is my key?" As if nothing extraordinary happened, the wife sweetly replied, "You saw me where I placed the key. It is still right there." The husband was baffled. He was close-mouthed. How? Where? How did it happen? And so the wife told her side of the story. "Didn't I tell you, dear husband? I have a loving God. I can talk to him, and he can talk to me. He lives in heaven, he lives on earth, and he lives in my heart too. And how he desires to live in your heart too." This time, the woman didn't hear a sharp retort. Instead, she heard her husband say, "I want him in my heart too."
Amen.
All because he had witnessed from his wife with a flame of kindness, faithfulness, and love burning brightly. Will you do something for me? The next time you see a candle, will you think of ways your life can burn brightly for God? Then will you tell me about how you love Jesus? I would like to hear what you are doing to love him. Jesus spoke of light in Luke 11 verse 36. Therefore, if your whole body is full of light, and no part of it dark, it will be completely lighted, as when the light of a lamp shines on you. There was a song like this. Jesus wants before a sunbeam to shine for him each day. In every way, try to please him, at home, at school, at play. A sunbeam, a sunbeam. Jesus wants me for a sunbeam, a sunbeam, a sunbeam. I'll be a sunbeam for him.
Amen.